so we did our presentation about inventors in Arab science. Our thesis is some of the most important scientific discoveries were credited to the Arabs in which they deserve the recognition. And our roadmap is the history of the Arab people through the inventions and inventors is so important to science today. So the Dark Ages were a gap of 1,000 years in science where Arab should be credited. And in the pictures to the left, you can see what is taught in schools versus what should be taught in schools about the Dark Ages. And Professor Al-Hassani asked why none of this is in our national curriculum, where they deserve so much credit. And so in a book he read, Scientists and Inventors, there were no Arab men, only 40 white men. And he said, I'm angry because of two things. Why don't Muslims talk to us in the language? Only politics and religion. We're surrounded by inventions. And there are mainly ideas of Arabs not credited for, which are Arabic numerals, paper, toothpaste, and toothbrushes, which all belong to the Arabs. And overall, there should not be a gap in scientific history from the 15th to 17th century. It should be Arabs.
So some of the most important discoveries were during this time period, and here are some examples. So first is Al-Jazari. He was a famous engineer, and one of his inventions was an elephant clock, which is right there, and it consists of a dozen of elements from other countries that he put together, and he made other inventions, but that's just like that stuck out. Next is Ibn al-Haytham. He invented the camera, which was known as camera obscura before, and his idea was to project an image onto another surface through a small hole in a dark room, and this is what it was when he came up with the idea, and this is a camera now. Next is Abbas ibn Firnas, and he was a man that believed you could fly. So he came up with the idea of this before the Wright brothers, and in the end he failed because he didn't have a tail on his wings, so it didn't land very well. Lastly is Abu Qasim al-Zahari. He was the father of surgery, and he invented tools that are still used today, such as the scalpel and catgut, which is used for stitching.
And then, so this was a manned rocket flight of Lagar and son Celebi in 1663. And so he took a rocket and just put himself up in the air. And it was during the Sultan's, when his daughter was just being born. And so he landed in front of the Sultan and said, I bring you greetings of Jesus Christ, peace be upon him. And so the people believed that the manuscript was fabrication and that the rocket invention wasn't credited properly due to being Arab. And then this is the University of Al-Qarawiyyin, Fes, Morocco. And so it was built by a young woman, Fatima El-Fihri. And so the feminine word of mosque is Jamahai, which means university, which means together. And so the university symbolized coming together, learning about religion and education. And then so a lot of the Arab culture was based with the chair concept, that whoever the master sits in the chair and he holds the most power, and his students sit on the ground since they don't have any power. And then so the 1,000 years lost of recognition still exists and needs sorting out, which is the Dark Ages. And so it has impacted people's attitudes and reinforces stereotyping, and it introduces an inferiority complex amongst other societies. So we need to appreciate what the Arabs did, and these are important for developed and undeveloped countries. And by removing the 1,000 years of unrecognition, we can go a long way in creating respect, and then reducing extremism. And then so this was a quote. So reperceiving cultural roots of inventions adjusts our attitude and enhances our social cohesion and intercultural appreciation. So if you like remove something like stereotyping, you have to fill it with something else. And so they're saying like fill it with academics and knowledge and just like enhance social cohesion and cultural appreciation. And so like a hope for the future would be to co-create shared human values. So that's it.
Good.